All right. You guys in for a real treat this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My guest this afternoon has had an amazing career in showbiz that's lasted more than 4 decades. During that time, she has appeared in television shows like Quincy, 8 is Enough, The Love Boat, Murder, She Wrote, HBO's Carnivale, Sons of Anarchy, Fantasy Island, Hotel, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and The Drew Carey Show, to name a few. On the big screen, she has appeared in films like The Fog, Argo, Creepshow, Cannonball Run, Escape from New York, Back to School, in 1982 Swamp Thing. But she is probably she is probably best remembered for her role as Carol Traynor on the hit sitcom Maude. What a thrill it is for me today to have this legendary actress on my show today. She is also the winner of the Cannonball Run race. The lovely and talented Miss Adrienne Barbeau joins me. Adrienne, first of all, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Well, thank you. Boy, you went back a ways for some of those TV appearances. Well, I don't even remember. I did some.
You got such a vast resume that's pretty easy to put together, to be honest with you, and it's just pretty simple. But you've had an incredible career. Like I said, it's lasted more than 4 decades, and ironically, you start off in entertaining troops in Southeast Asia as a young girl.
Yes.
How was that?
So long ago that it wasn't called Southeast Asia. It was the Orient. We were going to the Orient.
Right.
I was right on the DMZ performing for our GIs when the North Koreans were coming over and shooting at them.
Oh my goodness.
It was quite an eye-opening experience for an 18-year-old.
My goodness. Before you went over there, did you have any training as an actress?
No, not really. I started out doing community theater when I was in high school, and it was actually and doing musicals primarily in San Jose, California, and it was the San Jose Civic Light Opera that put together this musical comedy review and applied to the State Department. And a week after I graduated high school, we went overseas and did 3 months. It was my first paying job. I think we got $7 a day. And
wow.
We were on an atomic testing center called Johnston Island, where they didn't allow women to sleep overnight. We just landed and did the show and got back in the plane. And it was an incredible experience. And then I came back and started college and continued to do community theater, and ran into an actress who had been in New York in an off-Broadway play, and she said, you ought to go to New York and study. I figured I would just graduate college and get a degree and teach acting or something. I didn't know you can earn a living as an actor. It never crossed my mind.
Wow.
But this friend said, go to New York, and I thought, okay, I'll go to New York. If I'm not working by the time I'm 25, I'll go back to school and get my degree and teach acting. And I got my first Broadway show. I was in Fiddler on the Roof. I played one of the daughters, along with Bette Midler, who played the older daughter, and John Savage, who then went on to Deer Hunter fame. And John and I ended up in Carnivale together, back in the early 2000s.
Brilliant actor.
Yes, yeah. We've done several projects together. And so that started by that, I sort of learned by doing. And Fiddler led to, I was the original Rizzo in the first Broadway production of Grease. And then that led to Maude, and that led to my moving to Los Angeles and, pretty much ending up with TV and movies ever since, except, in fact, I was in Boston in 2006, in that horrible blizzard of 2016, doing Pippin.
Oh, wow, Pippin. Well, Pippin.
Hanging upside down from the trapeze, singing the song.
Well, yeah, that was more like a like you say, trapeze. But was that a remake of the Bob Fosse play, Pippin?
It was a remake. Yes, of the original musical, the original Broadway musical of Pippin, when John Rubinstein played Pippin, and this was the national tour that I was doing, and John Rubinstein played Charlemagne. You know,
wow.
all these many years later, we were in Boston for 2 weeks.
Interesting, because I know Ben Vereen also did that play, and William
he
Catt.
was the leader.
Right,
yes,
and William Catt as well.
He was the leader of the band of players.
Wow, those small worlds.
It was reimagined in 2013.
I want to ask you about your singing. Did you have any Did you have any training for your singing? Because I heard you some audio clip that you sing in Grease on Broadway. It was phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
That's true.
I did, yes. My mother, when I was in 5th grade, somebody said to my mother, you know, she can sing. You ought to take her to have voice lessons. I did go and take voice lessons. In the end, I ended up with a teacher who pretty much destroyed me and destroyed my belief in myself.
Really?
Yeah. I wrote a memoir back in, 2006 called There Are Worse Things I Could Do, about, using the song from Grease as the title, about little pieces of my career and the movies and moving to New York and in it I do go into detail about the beginning of my career and the danger of ending up with the wrong teachers.
Right.
And I studied classical voice. I wish now that somebody had said, stop that, pick up a guitar, learn how to play, and sing rock and roll. But that wasn't to be.
Interesting. Adrienne, as a struggling actor or actress, you always got to do some kind of odd jobs to pay the bills. You actually work for an exterminator. Is that true?
My first job was in a beauty salon, sweeping hair. But my second job, yes, I ran a termite control office.
Oh, wow.
But my third job, I worked for Matty the Horse Ionello, the head of one of the crime families.
One of the Genovese crime families, right.
Yeah, right.
Hi-yo.
I worked at Matty's Mardi Gras. And,
wow.
I've been told since that I was we were the very first go-go girls in existence in Manhattan.
Wow.
Working at that club. So I had some odd jobs before I finally, got in the union and was able to support myself just as an actor.
Amazing. Well, wow, interesting fact. I did not know that.
Oh yeah, Matty the Horse.
Not that I've ever been in a place of ill repute like that before. I'm just saying.
Well, it was. You know what it was? It was a restaurant, a cocktail lounge restaurant on 49th Street. It was called Matty's Mardi Gras.
Wow.
And I talk about that in the memoir too. In fact, it wasn't until after the memoir was published that someone sent me when I was writing it, I guess, I started doing research, and I thought, because I never knew his last name, he was just Matty, I thought, let me find out who...
Matty the Horse?
Matty the Horse, yeah. Let me find out if I can, figure out who this guy was. And then it was like, oh my gosh, there he is. And,
wow.
He owned the Peppermint Lounge, and he owned,
Jesus.
I think he owned the place. Well, you're in Boston, you're not in New York, but you probably would still remember, where the clam bar,
Umberto's?
Umberto's
No
clam bar,
way.
and the story that I read was he was on the floor of the kitchen when they walked in to blow away whoever that
Joe
guy
Gallo.
was.
Joe Gallo.
Yes, Joey Gallo.
Joey Gallo. Don't ask me how I know this. I mean, I read a lot. I don't know. Hi-yo. Joe Gallo, shot by Frank the Irishman Sharon, which was the movie that Scorsese's got coming out in a couple months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's based on... I actually had the author on, Charlie Brandt. Look him up, Charles Brandt. He wrote the book called The Irishman. It's coming out with Scorsese, De Niro, Pesci. Yeah, it's going to be for Netflix.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and that and that was mentioned in the book, the Joey Gallo murder.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. And Matty was
Matty the Horse.
Supposedly he got up from he saw him walk in or something. This is one article that I read, and he took off and they think he was down on the floor in the kitchen.
Jesus. Did he ever end up in a trunk?
That I don't know. He ended up in jail. I know that.
That's the same thing. That's a little small, a little bit more leg room. Anyways, back to the interview. That was a good sidetrack. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about Grease, Adrienne, because Grease, when you did it on Broadway, wasn't too well received by the critics.
That's right. In fact, we opened, and I think they posted. I'm not sure if they posted the closing notice the next day, but the reviews were so bad that everybody thought, "Well, that's it. We're not gonna. That's it. We'll close." The New York Times didn't get it at all. The New York Post didn't get it at all. I mean, the second string reviews came in. Some of the television reviews and the Daily News came in, and they were better. But the producers, God love them, they thought they saw, as they said, a pilot light in the box office, and they thought if we could just stay open a couple of weeks, that word of mouth might turn things around. So they went out and raised more money.
Oh, wow.
Even came to the cast and offered us the opportunity to buy a point, and of course none of us had any, who had money at that time.
Right. You're working as a go-go
and
girl.
We didn't, the emergency medical fund, is all I had. But they kept it open, and then it turned into, at one point the longest running show on Broadway.
The rest is history. You actually received a Tony nomination for you.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Grease, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you never seen Grease, the movie?
I've never seen it,
wow.
No. I was in a store one day, and I heard one of the songs over the loudspeaker, and it was such a different take on the music than what we had done. The original Grease, which it's long gone, and I don't think there's any recording of it, or any video of it, but it was pretty raunchy and hardcore and raw. It was much more realistic, I think. And what I understand is the productions that are done now are more fun and more bubblegummy and all of that. But when I heard the music and I heard the way they did it, I thought, you know what? I have such good, wonderful memories of the show the way we did it. I don't want to see this. I don't know. I saw Grease too. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
Adrienne
Zemed. Adrienne Zemed was in that. Michael Caulfield. I believe his name is Caulfield.
Michael Caulfield was
the blonde-haired, good-looking kid.
Barry Bostwick's role, right? Zuko, right? Was he Zuko?
He was the kid at the end. He had no friends, and he became cool. Yeah, he was sort of like the Olivia Newton-John character. He evolved at the end.
Oh, I don't even remember. I just remember thinking Michelle Pfeiffer was very good and beautiful, and she probably had a good career coming. Yeah, right. Coming up.
Like you say, you never saw the film, but did you ever receive any? Like, did they say, hey, listen? Because a lot of times they I had Patty McCormick on a couple weeks ago, who was in.
Patty used to be my down the hill neighbor.
Get out of town! Wow.
I haven't seen her for years.
Oh my God, she's a doll. I got her number. I'll give it to you. She's the best.
She is. She's lovely.
She's a doll. But like she did the Bad Seed on Broadway as a young child. But a lot of the director used a lot of the cast in the film. Was there ever a point where they said, "Listen, they got these people on Broadway. They're fantastic. Why don't we audition them for the film version?" Did that ever happen?
No, not for me at least. Mm-hmm. I mean, they did use Jeff Conaway. Oh yeah, was
Kinnicky.
An understudy. He was an understudy in our production originally, and Johnny Travolta was, I believe, he was an understudy. I left the show after 6 months to do Maude, and I think John came in after that, to the Broadway show. But in terms of me, I never even knew they were doing it. I doubt that. I mean, we were all too old to be doing it on Broadway when we were doing it,
Right,
so it never crossed my mind that they would think that. And I was doing Maude, And also, I mean, I realized later, Stockard Channing's manager produced the movie Grease, and I think that she asked to audition for him, and eventually they hired her, and I understand she's great, not having seen it.
Right.
She's certainly great in everything else she does, but no, it never, the thought never rose its
Interesting.
in my,
Interesting. So, Adrienne, you're doing the production, your Broadway production of Grease. Did Norman Lear come there, or did he send somebody else to check you out, so to speak?
I think what happened was when I was nominated for the Tony, and when our reviews came out, Norman had a casting director, a woman named, it just went out of my head, Murray, I can't remember, but she either came to see the show or she knew enough about it, or somebody came to see the show, and I got a call that Norman wanted to meet with me. Well, the pilot for Maude had already been done, and Marcia Rod had played Carol. Marcia's another New York actress. But when they got the pickup, and they were going to be filming in L.A., I think Marcia didn't want to relocate. And so they were having to replace her character. And so I met with Norman, but the character had already been established as having a 7-year-old son. And after the meeting with Norman, I heard back from my agent that he just didn't think I looked old enough to have a 7-year-old son. Okay, that's fine. That's the end of that. And about a month later, I got a call from my agent saying they want you in Los Angeles in 2 days. They want you to audition for the role. They couldn't find what they wanted. And so, again, thanks to the producers of Grease, Ken Waisman and Maxine Fox, they let me go. I didn't even have my understudy was covering for like 3 other roles, but she said, I can do it, I'll learn it,
Absolutely.
You go. And,
Absolutely.
They let me go, and I flew out and auditioned and flew right back, and they called a week later and said, you start work.
Wow. All right, so
in another week.
So you head out to LA to do Maude. Do you remember the first time you met B. Arthur?
I do not. I don't remember specifically the first time. I just no, I don't.
That's okay. I mean, it's a long time ago. Was she anything like what she was on TV on the show?
No. Not to my way of thinking. I love Bea dearly. I mean, she was, and I've said over and over again, I so took everything for granted in those days because I'd never even watched television. I'd always been on stage at night, So I didn't know anything about TV, and I just assumed that everyone was as incredibly professional and talented and loving and giving as Bea was, because that's what she was. And it wasn't until, I left the show and started doing other shows that I thought, oh, wow, were we lucky? But she was incredible.
Yeah, she had that chip on her shoulder. Right. She looked like she didn't really care for that celebrity stuff.
No, she did not. She did not. She didn't take part in that at all. And really none of us. I mean, we were all Norman hired stage actors, and and so that we all had a really strong theater background, which leads to a really strong work ethic and a professionalism that you don't always find in people who have acquired their careers through celebrity or came up as child actors or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But Bea was, she was always the first one what was important to be was making the best show possible. If that meant that she was going to give up a line to somebody else because it'd be funny coming from somebody else, it'd be funnier coming from somebody else, she was the first one to say it. I think this joke would work better if Connie did it or Adi did it, or and always the first one to jump up and greet the visiting guest actors. She didn't suffer fools if
right.
somebody wasn't doing their job, or they, she made it known. But we were a fantastic family, and everybody just.
No divas.
It was a joy to go to work for 6 months, for 6 years.
Right. There was no divas on set.
No divas. God, no,
as they
no
say
divas.
nowadays. You also got a chance to work with the wonderful William Macy. How was that?
Bill is just an absolute character.
Yes.
He was just an absolute character. I don't know if he ever really understood what it was about him that made him funny, because when we'd be going over a script, he'd start to break it down, and we'd all look at him and say, "Bill, what are you talking about? Just say the line the way you say it. It's funny." He was just a natural. He was a hoot. He was a hoot.
Adrienne,
he and I and I guess
he's still with
Brian
us.
Morrison.
He's still with us.
Yeah. Bill's still with us.
Yeah. Well, we just lost Conrad a couple years ago.
Yes.
Conrad Bain.
And I was of all of them, I think I was closest to Connie. I didn't get to see Bea as often because she was. We live so far apart, and
I read somewhere, Adrienne, that the role of Carol on Maude was not really your favorite character to play.
Well, when you look at some of the others that I've done, you'll understand why. I think. Right. I mean, Carol was. She was the straight man. She was the one that was giving out the information.
Right.
She was. She may have been initially meant to be much funnier, but when I started, I was so nervous and so, at sea about working on television that I sort of clammed up, and the writers didn't quite know how to write for me in the beginning. But she found her way, and what I've come to realize now, at the time, none of it, I don't think any of us, we were doing a show that we were all very proud of, and I was extremely happy to be involved in something that was socially significant and everything. But I didn't understand, or I didn't realize in these last years when I've been doing the personal appearances and things. I have so many people come up to me and say, your role on that show, the role of Carol, was so impactful on my life because you showed me how, and not just women, but men as well, but you showed me how to be, how I could be in a world where nobody else was saying it was okay to be
a strong woman on screen, very rare back then.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And I still remember the young man who came up and said, I never knew a family could yell at each other and fight with each other and still love each other, because that's not the way it was in our house. There was the yelling and the fighting, but I learned from watching Maude that was out there, and women especially, and young women who were at that time just finding their sexuality and coming out or not coming out because you just didn't do that, Carol was, and I didn't think about it at the time, but I'm so honored to have been able to be a part of that now.
Adrienne, Maude was a comedic sitcom, and it was very funny at the time. Did you find it difficult to get any dramatic roles after Maude ended?
The industry, they love to pigeonhole.
Right.
When I first went to L.A., I was a I started out, she's a theater actress. And then because my first show in LA was Maude, she's a comedienne. And it took a couple of years before anybody would even, hire me for a dramatic role. My first dramatic role was on Quincy. I played a rape crisis counselor who got raped, but but then she's a television actress. And in 1978, when Maude went off the air, if you were doing TV, you couldn't get seen for a feature role. The prevailing thought was nobody's going to pay to see somebody in the theater when they can see him for free every Tuesday night. So had not John Carpenter come along, John and I worked together on a TV movie that he wrote and directed, and that's how we met. And then we became romantically involved, and he wrote The Fog and asked me if I'd play Stevie Wayne.
Right.
Once I got over the realization that The Fog was not Coming Home or China Syndrome or something that was going to change the world, which is because I was coming out of Norman Lear, You mean this doesn't have a message?
Exactly. There's no message yet. Still a lot of
Once I got over that, I said yes, I'd love to, and that was my first feature. But in those days, I think John Travolta was probably the first one who came out of Welcome Back, Kotter, and into Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, then he did the boy in the plastic bubble.
Right. Yeah. To make that transition from TV to film.
And now,
my God, you have if you're a hit TV star, you're fighting off the film actor.
Right, and got Clue.
But then, because the first one was The Fog, and because I ended up marrying John, then I was a horror film. I was a genre actress, So it's just been all over the map, and it still is. I just finished doing a wonderful Netflix series. I just did a guest star with RuPaul.
Oh wow!
And a wonderful. I guess it's not a comedy. It's from Michael Patrick King from Sex and the City, and. So I do comedy. I just did an episode of Swamp Thing and another episode of Creep Show, so that's more genre stuff. I've got a couple of films coming out that are sweet, sort of a family. It's just all over the map.
Right. You're busy.
Take whatever comes along.
Whatever comes along, right? As long as you're busy.
That I'm interested in. Yeah.
Right. I want to ask you a little bit about Swamp Thing. Talk about that film. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams, as when you were a struggling actress, that your first love scene would be with a swamp creature on film?
I never did, no. It was pretty much my first and last, or my only. I don't know if I've had any other love. Oh, no, in Carnivale, I did. Okay. And
at the time,
wasn't that wonderful, because I had a love scene with a boy that was maybe 30 years younger than I was. But Swamp Thing was not an easy film.
Really?
It was, because the studio kept undercutting the budget, and Wes had to, he really had his hands full. He was having to rewrite almost daily, throwing out scenes because there wasn't enough money to pay for them.
And actors.
Pardon me?
And actors, too.
And actors, too, yeah. He had to eliminate characters, and it wasn't easy. The fact that he did such a fantastic job with what he, ended up having to work with, and that it's become such a beloved classic is a real tribute to Wes's.
Did you even know who Wes Craven was when he read the script?
No. I didn't know who George Romero was when they offered me Creep Show.
Wow.
And in fact, I was going to turn down Creep Show because I thought it was too gory and bloody and everything. And
how about Stephen King?
Of course, it's become one of my very favorite characters. and most memorable, I think.
You played Wilma Northrop in the Crate segment, 1982. Stephen King, did you know who Stephen King was at the time?
Probably not.
Probably
not.
It's funny. You worked with Hal Holbrook in the Creep Show, and you actually worked with him in The Fog as well.
Yes, although I don't. I'm not sure that Hal and I ever met.
Oh.
When we were doing The Fog, because we were not in any scenes together. All of my stuff was shot in Northern California and on a set here in L.A. And I don't know if Hal was up in Northern California or not, but if he was, most of my character is by herself, in all of her scenes. So I really didn't get to know him until we showed up in Pittsburgh to do Creep Show. What a good man he is. Oh. And Fritz Weaver. I mean, it was wonderful. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Hal's still with us as well. Hal Holbrook's still with us.
Yeah,
trying to get him. Talk about working on Escape from New York. You played Maggie.
What I remember most is trying to keep myself together, because Donald Pleasance was one of the funniest men I've ever been around. And invariably he would say something in a very dry delivery right before I had to deliver a line. And
that's the worst.
John, he had to stop rolling. I can't. I'm laughing too hard. And
did you do any scenes with Lee Van Cleef?
I didn't have any with Lee. Lee was all in L.A.
Oh, all right.
And nor did I know at the time that he was dying. He had cancer.
Oh, wow.
And but John was a huge fan of his and was so happy to have him in the film. And but no, I didn't have any words.
How about Ernest Borgnine?
Ernie was great. Ernie was great. And he was getting ready to do a one-man show, and so most of the time when we weren't filming, he was working on his lines. He was worried that it's like an hour and a half of monologue that you've got to memorize, and so. But he's such a lovely man.
Yeah, he seemed like
years later when my first book came out, we sort of dovetailed with each other on the book tour, so I got to spend even more time with him, and he was a sweetheart.
Folks, joining me on the phone is iconic actress Adrienne Barbeau. Please visit her website at abarbeau.com. Her memoir's up there. She's an incredible writer as well, New York Times best-selling author. Adrienne, can you talk a little bit about how fun was working on Cannonball Run? It seemed like a fun set with so many legends on there. It just seemed like a funny...
Oh, Mike. It was not as fun for me as it was for everyone else. Everybody else was just like, oh, yeah, let's just, show up, and it doesn't matter what we say or what we do, and the audience will think we're great. And it was early in my film career, and I was intent on being a good actor and creating a character.
It didn't exist on that set, right? Didn't exist.
It was sort of, I had a great time. Dom is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I had a great, and Dean, who never said a line in the script, but it really didn't matter, except that you didn't know what your cue was going to be, because he was so delightful. He was so sweet and so funny. But we had a couple of bad accidents on the set, and a real tragedy with one of the stunt women, being paralyzed from the neck down. And so it was, for me, it wasn't as. If you look at the last at the credits,
right,
when everybody is telling tales on myself, but it's there on screen. When everybody is laughing hysterically because Bert keeps slapping Dom.
Yes, the bloopers.
And then if you look at my face, I didn't think it was funny.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
You know, I just
yeah, I'll take a look at it next time I see it. I'll take a look at it. How about Back to School? That must have been fun.
Back to School was fun. Back to School
I got one.
Rodney was he was a character. He was a character. And a sweet man. But oh God, he was funny.
I heard he had a lot of lines that groupies lined up at his trailer. Is that true?
He did. I got this on the set the first day, and I said to the producer, "What are all those women standing around? Are we using, extras or something?" And he said, "No, they're all waiting for Rodney. He's a real sex symbol." Oh my gosh.
It's funny. I love the inside stories. That's what my show's all about, is a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and the stories. In 2012, you got a chance to work with Alan Arkin as Nina in the Oscar-winning film Argo. How was that?
Yes, yeah. Well,
'cause that was a big film.
I loved Alan, and John Goodman was on the set at the same time.
Oh yeah, right.
I really enjoyed, hanging out with both of them. I had a little cameo role. The one thing that I remember about that shoot is that I play an actress who is doing a role in the movie within the movie. I don't know if you remember the film.
Yeah, I've seen. Right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's all set in the late 70s. And the film within the film is a science fiction film.
Correct. Correct.
I'm playing Alan Arkin's ex-wife,
right,
who is playing the role of Circe the witch or something. Well, we show up on the set, and I swear to God, there's another actress, a background, an atmosphere actress, wearing my jumpsuit from Cannonball Run.
Oh, my goodness.
And I went to the costumer and I said, "Look at this picture." I had a picture of me on my phone from, a fan photo or something. I said, where did you get that costume? She said, "Oh, I pulled it from the wardrobe at, Warner's or Universal or whatever it was." I said, "Is this She said, "Yeah, that's your costume."
Wow.
And they were using it to make her look like a science fiction, whatever she was, an alien or something.
I'm sure you can fit right into it right now today.
I could. I mean, it might be a little big on me. I've gotten a little. But the girl was much taller than I was, and I said, "What did you do about?" She said, "Oh, we put her in high white boots."
Interesting. Wow, that didn't blow your mind. Nothing else will. I want to ask you, Adrienne, about Hollywood pressures in Hollywood, especially on women nowadays. And did you feel any of the pressures on Hollywood? For, if some women, they wanted them to look thin, they wanted them to get some work. Did you feel any of those pressures back in the 70s and 80s?
Well, I do. I mean, I arrived. I had been working on Broadway for 8 years, and as a dancer, and but I was, a little. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're on stage and you're dancing and you're in great shape. I got here, and I sort of got. I don't think anybody ever said you've got to lose weight, but there was. I was aware that, I was a little more Zoftic than they would have liked me to be. The one thing I do remember is that they wanted me to lighten my hair because I think they thought we all looked too ethnic. I had dark curly hair. Bea had dark hair. Maybe, I don't think she was gray then. We were all... So they sent me to this place. I'd never done anything to my hair. They sent me to this place who put some kind of process on it, and my hair turned orange. It turned, just, like a rust orange.
It's like something from the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, it was. Then they tried to lighten my eyebrows to match. And when I look at those early episodes of Maude, it's like, oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Every day the hairstyle was different, and every day was a different color. And so there was that. More than that, I'm sure it was there, but I think I was a little oblivious. I mean, I had a job, I was working. You know, and it never crossed my mind that on our hiatuses I was supposed to be, you know, looking for other jobs. I had a job, you know.
Right, you're working, steady work.
And so I got sort of a late start, but it, you know.
Adrienne, knowing what you know nowadays about Hollywood, would there be anything you would change about your career?
I made an agency decision once. I was with the very top agency in town when they had just come together. But I was very I don't know if timid is the word, but
naive?
I was naive to a certain extent, but I was not aggressive in any way.
Right.
And I didn't have a manager to sort of, you know, oversee things. And I was so at a loss. I mean, my thought was, well, if they have something for me, they'll call me. You know, I never called and said, what about this or what about that? And
right, there's a big film coming up. I want to audition for that part of Julie.
Yeah, and I was sort of at a loss to know who was doing what and who I was supposed to be talking to, and just sort of waiting around. And one of the agents was, I do remember, he was a real chauvinist, and this was the height of the Equal Rights Amendment. I mean, he was a real, you know, I didn't even like talking to him, but I got
was his initials M.O.? Go ahead.
It might have been.
Probably.
I got a call from Roy Clark's manager asking me to open for Roy at Harrah's in Reno. And so I called my agency and I said, you know, I'll be out of town for 3 weeks. I'm going to be opening for... Oh, well, you owe us commission on that. I said, what do you mean I owe you commission on that? I'm not signed with you as a singer, you know, for AGVA or whatever it was.
AGVA,
you didn't get the... Well, no, you owe us commission, you know. You owe, and that came on the heels of a couple of other things that had been not well handled, and dealing with this one agent that I just... And I thought, you know what, I'm not good here. I'm not good at this at a big agency. I need to go find somebody that I'm comfortable with and that I really, you know, enjoy working with. So I left. And of course, I mean, you know, who knows, had I stayed there. This is the kind of agency that, you know, they just pick up the phone and they say, you're going to use Adrienne in this, or we're putting Adrienne into this or that. And the career might have gone a whole different way, but I couldn't have stayed. I wasn't comfortable. I was much happier, you know, dealing with somebody that I cared about and believed in and felt was honest and honorable and I could talk to.
Right.
So that's about the only decision. I have taken films that I hope to God nobody ever sees, you know.
Did you go to Russia or something?
What?
Didn't you go to Russia one time?
I did. I went to Russia. And I went to Russia. I mean, I took that movie, and that's one that I hope to God nobody ever sees. But I would never... I don't regret that experience at all. I took the movie because I wanted to go to Russia. I'd never been, and I wanted to go. And so each film that I took, you know, either because I needed to pay the rent or because I wanted to work with a certain actor. Or because I really loved the role and it didn't dawn on me that the rest of the movie wasn't going to work. Or, you know, there was always a reason.
What would you say, real quick, before we can wrap this up, what would you say was your favorite role of all time that ever played?
Probably Ruthie on Carnivale. I mean, I love Billy.
Wow.
I love Billy in Creepshow. She was, and she's one of my favorites to watch, But and Stevie Wayne. I mean, I loved making The Fog because we were such a wonderful family, and it was in such a beautiful part of the country. And
you're super talented. Yeah, you've had an amazing career, and I got so many more questions for you. But unfortunately, I got one more question for you. I want to really I'm going to take you way back. How nervous were you the first time you went on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson?
I was nervous.
Wow.
I was nervous.
I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah, I was nervous every time I went on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. You could do Merv or you could do Mike Douglas, and it was just fun, and, it was just, Merv loved to gossip, and Mike was so sweet, and it was, but there was always a pressure. Oh, let me see if I can shut this thing off.
That's okay.
There was always a pressure on Johnny's show to come through, and so there was always
because the whole country was watching pretty much. Back then, it was 3 or 4 channels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Adrienne, this has been a joy for me. And all right, guys, the iconic actress, Miss Adrienne Barbeau. Adrienne, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for doing this. Folks, please visit abarbeau.com, ABRBEAU.com. It's an amazing website. You can get her memoirs on there. She's a New York Times best-selling New York Times best-selling author as well. And Adrienne, this has been a joy for me because I grew up watching a lot of your stuff, and I believe I even had your poster in Farrah Fawcett's.
Thank you, Mike.
This has been a joy. Thank you so much. Continued success. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.